Good morning, everyone. Since I had found that new editorial from JAMA and I sent it to everybody last night, I thought that I would send also this follow-up video kind of discussing the implications of this article. First of all, the article is very weak. This article from JAMA, titled an editorial, even though it's not really a very professional editorial, the supplement paradox, negligible benefits, robust consumption. They're just repeating the same thing that these journals always repeat, and that is that these nutritional supplements don't provide much benefit, they're expensive, and associated with adverse effects. So in order for them to say those things, they have to be very selective in the research that they review, and that's part of what makes this editorial so weak. I'm just looking at the document right now. You can see that I've highlighted, and I already sent this to everybody. I'm sure you know that this article is worthless. I mean, this editorial is of zero scientific or intellectual value. However, because it comes from JAMA, and therefore the American Medical Association, it'll get a lot of press. You'll see this in the newspapers, etc. And that's obviously adversely consequential for what we're trying to do, which is, of course, support the use of nutritional supplements to optimize health. So let's just see what we might look at in terms of critiquing this article. I'll just make this very, hopefully short and sweet. During the past 2 decades, he says, the nutrition research has been very disappointing, but people are buying more supplements. You'll notice that he provides no citations for his claims there, so that's really weak. First of all, those are very sweeping generalizations. So to say something so large, so non-specific, and then even worse, to not cite it, is pretty pathetic. I mean, most journals wouldn't publish something like that unless they're trying to achieve some political goal, which of course in this case is to slam the use of dietary supplements. You'll notice also here, this is all what I would call intellectual inbreeding. He's quoting sources that are notoriously unreliable, and then he says that these are reliable sources of information. Obviously, that's not true. Most of these people don't know anything about nutrition, and then they go on to study it. Their studies provide negative results because they don't know what they're doing, and they don't do nutritional supplementation the way it should be done. He also then goes on to claim that he's going to provide prominent examples of high-quality studies. And then look at the studies that he references. Multivitamins for cancer, heart disease. These are old studies. Echinacea to treat the common cold. That's 15 years old. St. John's wort to treat major depression has already been validated to be safer and more effective than antidepressant drugs in major meta-analyses. And I presume that he's probably just looking at one little study. He cites number 8. Yeah, it's an article in JAMA, but from 2001. I mean, if you look at the guy's source of information, he only cites very selectively old studies. Echinacea in experimental rhinovirus, 2005. Multivitamin, 2009. St. John's wort, 2001. That's 15 years old. Vitamin E on cancer, that's old news as well, 2009. So this is a really bad article, and unfortunately it'll probably get some major press just because it comes from JAMA. I'm sure all of us remember the conversations about beta-carotene supplements and lung cancer. Those studies were ridiculous. First of all, I believe that they use synthetic beta-carotene, which blocks the absorption of natural beta-carotene, which is more effective. Second of all, the fact that they used beta-carotene by itself blocked the absorption of other carotenoids, such as alpha-carotene, which is actually more effective for preventing lung disease. So this, again, is just very selective use of bad research to support his case. He talks about vitamin C, vitamin E, and selenium having no benefit. I can show you plenty of studies where they had benefit, so that's ridiculous. And here's where he really kind of put the icing on his own cake of ridiculousness. He quotes this study from 2006, and it's a study that I hate, and I knew right when I read that he was citing this study from New England Journal of Medicine 2006 by Clegg. This is one of the most ridiculous studies ever published because it's not even a legitimate study. I'll get to it in just a minute. But again, I've critiqued that article in my books as an example of bad research, and this guy claims that it's a prominent example of high quality study. Ridiculous. Omega-3 fatty acids, lycopene, vitamin D, and probiotics, all of those have great research behind them. And he's saying that they're not useful clinically. And then this is also really horrible that he would say these things. He basically says that the only reason patients use these supplements is because they're either uninformed or ignorant, and that doctors therefore have to educate them. Remember now, this is going out to medical doctors who have no training in nutrition. And he also says it's for consumers who don't have faith in the scientific process. So he's saying that they're either ignorant or they're completely stupid and kind of medieval because they don't believe in science. So that's pretty offensive as well. He then goes on to say that DSHEA provides manufacturers significant leeway to advertise supplements for a broad spectrum of conditions. I believe that that's absolutely false. I think the opposite is true. But the very fact is, as he states in the following line, we can only do structure and function claims, and as I'm sure we all appreciate within the industry, that kind of ties our hands. So, first of all, what he says here is wrong, that we're able to advertise the treatment of conditions, and then he contradicts himself by saying it has to be structure and function, which is true, but it's the opposite of what he said previously. He critiques ginkgo. Ginkgo has been shown to be effective in many studies. And then he even critiques coenzyme Q10 for heart health. And obviously, I've got plenty of studies on CoQ10. So I think the research is very strong on the use of supplements. This is the study that he cites from Clegg, and this is such a horrible study from 2006. So this is 10 years old. Some of you might remember this. Glucosamine, chondroitin sulfate, and the two in combination for painful knee arthritis. Well, first of all, they used glucosamine hydrochloride. They did not use glucosamine sulfate. Some data has shown that glucosamine sulfate is more effective than glucosamine hydrochloride. So my point is, if a difference exists, they used the weakest form of glucosamine for this study. They used glucosamine hydrochloride, not glucosamine sulfate. And second of all, this is not a valid clinical study. This study was sponsored by Pfizer. You can see that all of these people, virtually all of them, are paid by the drug companies. Most of them are paid by Pfizer. And this was basically a clinical trial, a short-term clinical trial using glucosamine and chondroitin against Celebrex. So they conducted this study for 24 weeks. So that's about 6 months. Let's take a look at some of the data. I thought that this was just a 6-week study. Maybe I'm wrong in my memory of this. I thought it was for 6 weeks, but now I'm reading that it was for 6 months. Let me just take a look at that. I have another version of this article that I highlighted. I just couldn't find it right now. So look at what they did. They used glucosamine and chondroitin against Celebrex. Ridiculous. I mean, if they want to do a clinical trial against nutrition versus a drug, they should call it that. They shouldn't call it a trial of glucosamine and chondroitin. They should call it a trial of glucosamine and chondroitin versus Celebrex, because that's what it is. Basically, this study was published only so that Pfizer would buy these reprints for a couple of $100,000 and then promote the sales of Celebrex. Patients were evaluated at baseline. So, in other words, my conclusion is that this guy is bragging about the quality of research showing that nutritional supplements don't work, and then he's citing old data and absolutely the worst of the old data. Let's look again towards the end of this article. You'll see that all of the authors were basically sponsored by Pfizer, McNeil, Pfizer, McNeil, Pfizer, McNeil, etc. Consultant to Pfizer. So my opinion is this is pretty ridiculous. But I think that this is just really horrid. And it's almost too stupid to warrant a response. But Anyway, I thought I would give you my quick video review, but this is just unfortunate. And again, uh, a reply to an article like this could be exhausting if we were to cite all of the data that refutes what he's stating here. And again, no point in exhausting ourselves if it's not necessary. But I just saw this come up on my news last night. That's why I sent it to everybody. And I was really, I guess I was actually more disappointed after I read it, because it's even worse. It's not even a good substantiation of what he's trying to say. He just makes himself look ridiculous. But we see more and more of that in the research, and in politics and social matters and GMO labeling, etc. So basically, the way that science should work is that whoever is correct should win the argument. But more and more, the winning prize, so to speak, just goes to whoever has the best social media, the best press outlet, and obviously JAMA has great press, because I'm sure they sent out a press release on this. It'll get picked up by every newsfeed out there, and this will get published to every newspaper, local and national. So anyway, if anyone has any more ideas on what we might do with this, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll work on it a little bit and I'll send it to the group. Thank you much.